to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Public comment. Public comment provides an opportunity for the public to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Persons wishing to make a comment must sign up in advance of the meeting on the sheet provided and identify themselves by providing a name and address. Do we have anybody on our sign-up sheet tonight? Is there anybody from the audience that would like to address City Council? Hearing none, I'd go ahead and entertain a motion to close the public comment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. We now move on to our regular agenda. First item on the docket is 6 Alpha, the Arbor Day Celebration memo. City Administrator approval.
Mayor, hey, members of City Council. Annually, we celebrate Arbor Day, and we have an event that is planned by the city. Tonight, we have PJ Heinrichs here to give a little update on what the plans are for 2019. So, with that, I'll invite PJ to come on up and introduce himself and to kind of go over what the celebration is all about, and then talk about the tree sale.
Supervisor Heinrichs, how are you this evening?
Good, bad, not bad. Good evening, Mayor and honorable council members, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here. One of the first tasks I was given to when I came to work for the Streets and Parks Manager was to kind of update some tree things we do. The Arbor Day celebration is something I take, ladies and gentlemen can take great pride in, the history of it. I just wanted to update it, I guess make it a little more entertaining. So I had a couple meetings with the 2nd grade teachers of St. Anne's and Park Elementary, and we came up with a new plan, and we're going to go out to, hopefully, Mayo Park will be out from underwater. Now we have a contingency plan, but we're going to have a little tree identification scavenger hunt, little picnic lunch, little celebration about Arbor Day, and then demonstrate tree planting. So that's kind of the update of that. We have some different things that the local Modern Woodmen are helping us offset some costs along with the Rotary Club by giving some little trinkets and gifts and stuff like that for the kids to enjoy. So it should be a fun celebration. So we have kind of changed it up a little bit, but backup plans are being made in case Mayo Park is not available. So, yes, there is a typo. We did catch the Woodman at one time, so sorry about that. The Arbor Day tree sale is something that should be done and take pride in because it helps keep your trees, us as a tree city in Sueur. We just put up the signs. We should be proud. 29 years you've been a tree city. Having a tree sale helps keep your accreditation, and I kind of offset it and changed it to coincide with Arbor Day versus in the fall. We used to sell potted trees, bald and burlap trees. We're going to sell container trees this year. Kind of a neat little change, but I'm offsetting the cost to help homeowners have, afford more trees. They can buy up to 6 per property. We have a long list of varieties, which you can all see there. We are strictly selling to my cost without any warranty. And we do also do the utility location, which is a nice feature so people know where the utilities are in their property. At least then help them, and we were going to take care of all the planting. So it should be kind of a fun little deal, and that sale starts next week and runs through May. Right shortly after that, we will do all the planting. So about, I would say mid-May we'll have them planted. Any questions? You'll see a long list of trees, and I'm kind of an arborist that likes to diversify because everybody likes maple trees, for example, but there is a couple maple trees in there. I have some ornamental trees that help, that should be planted, for example, under highline wires or any utility lines. But some of these trees are pretty good size and grow to full maturity, 50, 60 feet, and some don't. So, but there's quite a variety of trees that were chosen, so hopefully it kind of entertains some selling of trees. Any questions?
I guess the question I would have is, I know it's been a short time that you've been here with the city, but if you had an opportunity to go take a look at what our condition is of our trees within the city as far as potential diseased trees?
You have some concerns. I've seen some trees that need to be deadwooded, we'll call it, that are being mature. They're in the boulevard area. They're in a narrow boulevard, and I'm an advocate that being an arborist, I like trees, but trees don't belong in a narrow boulevard. And I'm using 2 to 4 foot, for example. They don't belong there, so they can, they don't have to be trimmed aggressively for utility lines and stuff like that. Some trees, you know, you should take pride in your parks. You have a very, very good diversity in a lot of your parks, and you have a lot of conifers, deciduous trees, so you do have quite a good variety of them. But fortunately, where I came from, we were just starting to go through the Emerald Ash Borer episode. We were part of our city was quarantined where I came from. Fortunately, it's not here yet. And you don't. One of my goals is to try to have long term is to have a tree inventory, and that's boulevards and parks, and help give me an idea of what we do have for trees and species.
So what is the policy that's in effect right now that, say we have one of our citizens that has a diseased tree that's spotted by one of our people that works for the city? What is the process?
Hopefully they will call it in via either my office line or request tracker via the website. I'll have a face-to-face communication with them, investigate it. It is, again, whether it is a city tree or a boulevard tree, and help them decide what they need to do with the tree, or if the tree needs removed, or we can just aggressively trim it, or, you know, let the tree go.
Members of City Council, any other questions for Supervisor Heinrichs? Okay, thank you very much. What's
Thank you
that?
for your time.
Thank you very much.
So I think I'll plant a couple of trees.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion from the City Council to approve for the planned events, even though there's just still some contingencies out there. Obviously, as we've heard, they're working on those contingency plans. But with what we know right now and what we have in front of us, can I get a motion to approve for the planned events?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We now move on to 6 Bravo, which is our Sueur Municipal Airport Commission City Code Amendment Ordinance, the second reading. City Administrator approval.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, before you is, and it's included in your packet, the updated version of the ordinance with a red line version and a clean version, based on the notes that we received from Councilmember Krogman at the last meeting. At the last meeting, we we waived the first reading. What we're looking at tonight is to discuss this amendment again. Talk about it, possibly read or waive the second reading of the ordinance, and consider adoption of the ordinance attached in the packet via motion. Now, if City Council feels or chooses that they would like to change something in the ordinance, they can do that at this time, and then waive the second reading. So with that, if there are any questions, it's essentially word for word what Councilmember Krogman proposed and what City Council directed staff to put in the ordinance.
Any questions for our City Administrator? Okay, so we are requesting the second reading of the attached ordinance to be waived. Can I get a motion on that, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is unanimously carried. City Council should also consider adopting the ordinance number Chapter 33 of the Sueur City Code. Can I get a motion for that, please?
I would so move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Krogman. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is too unanimously carried. And I'd like to again thank you very much, Councilmember Krogman, for all the work that you put regarding the Airport Commission ordinance. And I know it's a very timely process, and thank you for all that hard effort. We now move on to line item 6, Charlie, which is a land sale ordinance, the second reading. City Administrator Krugel.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, again, this is the second reading of an ordinance that we have to sell 3 parcels of land to the Minnesota River Valley Public Utilities Commission. Now there has been a purchase agreement approved to do this sale. We are going through the process identified in our city code to make sure that the process is followed correctly. So what that process is that we have to publish the land sale in our paper twice, and then hold a public hearing, which will be held on April 8th. So what we're looking at tonight is to discuss the proposed land sale, read or waive the second reading of the ordinance, and consider adoption of the ordinance attached in the packet via motion. Now there will be a public hearing held on April 8th. and that'll satisfy the code requirements. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions for our city administrator?
Would you explain that last process? I thought we waived the second reading if we did, and then we could adopt it, or we have to wait to adopt it until April.
So you could, we'll hold a public hearing. We need to do that in order to gather public comments. City council can choose to pass the ordinance that will do the sale. This is a unique situation because we're selling it to an entity that we're 50% of, right? So even if there's public comments that come in on April 8th, you could choose not to do that, not to sell the land. But because of the nature of the transaction, I feel it's fairly safe to conduct the sale. If you choose, you could choose to not actually pass the ordinance until after the public hearing. That is another option that you could do if you want to go that route. So you could do it in two different manners. I guess either way, it doesn't really affect the actual sale of the land and when it'll actually happen.
But just to be clear, we have to have a public hearing.
We do. We have to publish it twice in the paper, notifying the public that there will be a public hearing on the matter, and then hold that public hearing, which is scheduled for April 8th.
Okay. Our Minnesota River Valley Public Utility Commissioner, Ed, you're here. Is there any questions or any concerns you have regarding the second, the land sale ordinance as you've seen?
No.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to waive the second reading of our land sale ordinance.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Got a question for Jasper on that though. You don't have to go through the process when you're buying, only when you're selling them?
Correct. Well, it's different. So they talked a little bit about it in EDA, but for us, we still, when we purchase land, when we actually purchase it as the city, we have to publish that. We have to purchase it via ordinance. The EDA doesn't. So if we would be the ones purchasing the land, we would then have to pass an ordinance that would allow us to purchase it. We would have two readings of that ordinance and then hold a public hearing.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion to go ahead and waive the second reading is unanimously approved. We're also looking for the city council to adopt the attached ordinance as written. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Councilmember Crowley.
It seems strange to adopt an ordinance and then have a hearing after. It just doesn't make sense. As much as I want this done yesterday, I think we should wait until the next meeting in April, have the public hearing, and then adopt an ordinance. It's the process for the citizens, not for us. It's for them. I can't imagine anybody would object to it, but they might, and I don't know why. So, if I might, I would therefore move that we table this until our first meeting in April.
Okay. Can I go ahead and get, who made the motion to go ahead and move forward with this? Was that over here?
Marvin.
I did, thank you. Oh, yes, I did that.
Okay, would you go ahead and retract your motion, please?
Yes.
Okay, the second, I believe, was you. Would you retract that, please?
Sure, with comment.
Okay, now, we have a new motion to go ahead and table this until after the public hearing on the 8th of April. That's the motion.
Is there a second?
Is there a second? Yes, I'll second it. Okay, any additional discussion?
Sure.
Councilmember Families.
As chairperson, I don't see where the puck would have any issue with holding this off. Anyway, the check is ready to go. It's already agreed upon that we'd be buying it from the city, so no issue on our end.
Okay. But because we have to do the public hearing, we have to, it seems that Councilmember Krogman's got a point, though, that probably makes sense for us to go ahead and approve that after the public hearing. Any other discussion?
Is this gonna affect the closing at all if we wait?
And again, I don't think that matters all that much.
If I may.
Please.
It does, and I know that our legal counsel is working on the closing and coming up with a date on that. I don't see it mattering. Either way, we'll close in adequate time, we'll be fine.
Yeah, but on Merck Puck's end, the whole idea behind the purchase is that it was always intended that that piece of property would be for possible expansion for Merck Puck, because there's no other place to go if the city were to grow. And based on that, it's not like they have any plans of building on it right away. We got plenty of things to take care of on the facility now before we would even consider building on it yet. But that's what the intention for it is. So it's not like we're in any rush.
Okay, well, that's good. Good to hear. Any other questions or concerns from anybody? So we have a motion, we have a second to go ahead and delay to table this until after the public hearing on the 8th of April. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next item on the docket is 6 Delta, which is our document retention project update. City Administrator Krugel.
Mayor Hague, members of City Council, there have been some expenditures that have been approved in our disbursements over the last few months about our document retention project that we have. This project actually started about 2 years ago. We're just finally really getting into the actual scanning of the documents for this project. So we have our city clerk, HR director, communications director here. She will be giving an update on this. Yeah, maybe you can just grab Marvin. So,
Director Lawrence.
Hi.
Welcome.
All right, so I'm going to give just a brief update on our document retention project. This began in 2017. The software was actually purchased in 2016. To date, we have spent $19,586.41 on scanning. We've completed approximately 40% of it, and our estimated completion is 2020. So just kind of some background. We have a lot of paper here at City Hall, as you can imagine, and there's a large part of it that we are not able to scan in-house. We have a lot of, well, we don't anymore because we sent them to be scanned, but a lot of large format blueprints that we have to send off-site. We send them to a company called InDigital. So just kind of a brief background on how this kind of works is they scan in documents for us. They send us back a file. And then with that digital file, we can put it into our software, which is called Global Search. I just took a screenshot of what the software looks like right from my computer. So what you'll see is there's some inboxes there, and on the bottom portion, those are kind of our main hub for all of our files. So we have them separated into property files, city permits, general licenses, city council, things like that. So when we get the file back, we can put them into the inboxes, and then we go through them and index them into the files that they belong in. We also have the capability of scanning things right into our copy machine, and then we click, all those buttons are available, so you just press the button, it goes into that inbox, and then we have somebody look at it, put some keywords for that specific file, and then they live here forever. Some of the benefits of this, it has optical character recognition, or OCR, so when files come in, it's reading all of the text. And that helps with our search capabilities. Also, it's accessible to all of our departments. Prior to this, we did have some things backed up on our shared drive, but truly if you needed a property file, it was in paper form behind Kari's desk. So, or not only behind Kari's desk, but in the back room, in the boxes that are stacked 12 high. So this is really nice because all of our departments can access this. So for example, if somebody was looking at getting a new meter, and they were at the water wastewater department, if for some reason somebody on staff there wanted to look at their property file, they can just go in here and find any blueprints or any property files for that specific address. Also, all of our city council meetings will be backed up there, so every packet we ever have, like, that's been really fun, finding all the treasures in the back from, 1902. So all of those things will live indefinitely in these files. Any questions?
Yes, Director Lawrence, I've got a couple of questions. So it's the intent then that everything paper related for the city of Sueur within the next couple of years will ultimately be part of this scanned document collection?
For the most part, so basically just bigger items that we need everybody to be able to access. So city council files, yes, for sure. Sam wants to start putting EDA packets, minutes, files, all that can go in here as well. Any property files. So not everything, but most things will live in the software.
So I'm taking like OCR would be one of the things that you wouldn't be able to do for like handwritten type documents.
No, it can pick that up.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Do you have a question, City Administrator Kuba?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add is just think of this as something that's a permanent record that we need to make sure we have access to. We follow the Minnesota Data Practices Act and follow those retention guidelines. So there's things in here that we have, pay stubs, things like that, will all be scanned in here. Each of the documents we can we can put a retention date and then get rid of it, because then we are following those rules or those guidelines, and then we're not, having terabytes upon terabytes of data that we don't need to have anymore. But the big stuff like the council packets, things like that, we're gonna keep those in perpetuity, because I can vouch for this. When you're looking for something that happened in city council, even from 2003, and you got to go and dig in a box and try to figure out what was said about some meeting about MRPUC or our wastewater treatment plant. It'd be way easier just to go in here and type in a couple keywords and find all the documents associated with it, and then be able to print them off and include them in packets for discussion. Right now, that process is very, very difficult. So I'm excited for this. This is great. So initially when I started here, I was tasked with picking or being part of the team that picked this. There's some other software vendors out there. When I was in Northfield, we had a vendor called Laserfiche, which a lot of cities use, and you can tie all this stuff together. It's very expensive. This is a little bit, the version that we got is what I would consider, I think it was about $8,000, which is affordable for this type of software. Now, just keep in mind there are tiers available if we'd ever want to have a public-facing site where, if we want to have something on our website where anybody can go on there and search archives, we could do that. That's just another upgrade in the software. It's useful. People find it interesting, and it's everything that we would have searchable in there would be public data. So we would have to make sure that there isn't anything that isn't public in there as well. So that is an option. I think right now the key goal is to get our boxes of paper scanned and digitized, OCR'd, and be able to search it and just be able to create council packets, council documents that have more context in them. So when we're talking about something, it's not just what happened in the last 3 years, which we have very good, easy access to. It could include other discussions that occurred back to the beginning of when these packets were developed.
What about engineering blueprints?
Yeah, so we're not required to hold on to like building permit blueprints. Now we do have some that we've kept specifically for like Cambria, LSI, Agri-Pier, the hospital, things like that. The fire department could use those at times, so we hold on to those types, but for smaller engineering projects, we don't hold on to those for various reasons that we may not have the most recent updated version of it. So we don't want to be that repository that has the most updated, because we're not required to get that information. So we don't hold on to that, but we do have some of those things.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have two, if I may.
Councilmember Brown?
One, maybe a comment rather than a question, but I'll ask the question first that goes with it. What do we have now to back up what's stored up there? If there were a fire or a water damage, what do we have to back that up now?
Nothing.
Okay, so that's obviously a good reason to do this.
So we don't put that stuff into like a salt cave or anything of that nature.
No, I mean, and some of the things in the last 10 years, council packets, those things are on our shared drive, but many of these other older items,
Wow, sorry to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
yeah, it's an important
I
project.
guess we
need to
actually
get done.
thought
Yeah.
that there was, retention of documents that probably went back to when this time the city was founded, but.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see what's back there, but yeah, that's the only copies of
So
it.
these are just living in this 12-high pile of boxes.
Yeah, it's a mountain, for sure.
So this security thing, in a way, I mean, it is security. The other question is, somewhere along the way, I've heard that Bolton and Mank holds a lot of engineering plans for the city. Does this allow us to have a duplicate of that in our permit record so that we can, for example, infrastructure in the city, know where things are? I don't know, I'm asking the question.
Definitely. So we have this, you'll see the second folder in the archive is city projects. We're in the process of going back and figuring out what projects we've actually done, and then having all the pertinent documents associated with that put into that project folder. So, projects, for example, the most recent one that we have is the 2nd Street reconstruction project. I have plans upon plans and bidding documents and all these things that live in my file cabinet and Rich's file cabinet. We all have it, but there's no real central repository for the final documents. The idea is that every single city project will have all of those documents in it. And if Bolton Mink has those available, we will put them in with those projects. So, yes, the short answer is yes.
Thank you.
See, our council member families.
OCR I've been working with since probably 1995, and it's gotten so much better. I'm not sure if they've gotten to the point, if you're not getting a handwritten, when it's scanned in handwritten, it actually comes up as a typeface, I would imagine. They don't keep it as, do they?
So, I can answer that if I may.
Please.
So the actual image of the document stays the same. In the background, the metadata in the document is text.
Okay.
So you can pull that text out if you wanted. When you search, it'll search the metadata, but you'll always have that original document.
I just had to ask that. All right. I wanted Jasper to kind of discuss what he and I had talked about today about the data and information. You had asked about what we had currently for storing that information so we could save. And my question, because of the nature of our company, was, how is this saved for the future? Keeping things on the cloud. I'm not an overly trusting individual when it comes to cloud-based companies fail. So how do we hold on to that information? And is that stuff, banked out on RAIDs that are, carrying multiple copies of the same thing? Because it is all of our city's information, and now you no longer have a hard copy to hold on to. Jasper?
Yes. So all of these documents are stored. Their primary place of storage is locally. So we have an EMC that has solid state drives in it. We have 8 of those drives. 4 of them are primary. The other 4 are rated. So they're copied there. There are also nightly backups to the cloud, which we hope works. And then we also have the documents that we get from InDigital that they throw them onto our OneDrive, which is a cloud drive as well. So they're there too. So we have a backup of the original documents, and we have a local version with a backup locally, and then it's backed up to the cloud through Marco, our IT provider, through their cloud services nightly. So at the worst case scenario, we hope the most data that we could lose is 1 day's worth. Now, the perfect storm, there could be something that happens, and we rely on those IT infrastructure guys to give us suggestions on how to handle some of these more sensitive data items. So if there's something out there that's better, this would be one of our highest priority items that we want to make sure is backed up somewhere.
And one other question with that is, you're talking about property and maybe not holding on to plans. Well, I'm not sure how much sense that makes in this day and age. There's no reason why you can't have a PDF file, which you're turning things out in CAD, everything is done in CAD, turn it into a PDF file. Why can't the PDF file just be held into that documentation?
Yes, so a little clarity on that. So if it's part of like a building permit, that stuff all gets captured. But if there's, conceptual plans, there's all kinds of different steps when somebody builds something. The actual PDF of the engineered drawings, they'll get saved with the building permit, and they'll have all the markups of the building official, they'll have all that stuff. The conceptual things, you might get 10 different iterations of plans. And technically, and the building official can talk about this more intelligently than I can, there's reasons why they don't recommend you keep that stuff for longer than 7 years. Because you might rely on it, it might not have the most accurate information. There's a bunch of different reasons, but what we do is our property files have everything dated back as far as we can go, as far as if there was a permit pulled, any sketches, drawings, things like that. That'll be in the property file. That'll be really neat for staff to be able to access those things because, like Stacy alluded to, all that stuff's behind Kari's desk. When you walk into City Hall, you'll see all these file cabinets. Those will eventually go away. But no, I think there's usefulness to keep that information. But for various reasons, it's not recommended to keep something from 1950 for a building because it might not be reflective of what's there. It might be neat to have, but it might add to confusion. So hopefully that answers your question.
The builder side of me says newer plans aren't going to tell you what those footing sizes are and whether or not you can put that second story on. But that's, I understand. Thanks.
Cybersecurity issues, do we have any with this process, or do we experience any potential problems with digital?
For cybersecurity, most all of this data is public. We're not putting any personnel data in this, so Stacy has her own personnel file cabinet that has everything in it. We keep that locked down. We could add it to this. That just adds another tier of security as far as group permissions go, making sure that employees can't access personnel data that they're not supposed to. But like everything else, if you're talking just broad internet security, somebody maybe trying to collect a ransom for taking our server down, that's always a possibility. There's people trying to figure out how to do that, versus our best attempts to not allow them to do that. It's always going to be a constant fight. And that's why, in IT infrastructure, we have a very good setup. We have very good security. We do virtual private networks. We have multi-factor authentication for that. We have all these different security things that we have internally that will help mitigate that problem. But it's always going to be out there. I can't tell you that'll never happen to us because it could.
Any other questions?
I have one more, if I may. As we look at the cost right now, obviously we're going back in time, looking at old records. What is the future going to cost us
Annually.
3 years from now, roughly annually? Adjusting for whatever happens, but in general, what kind of a cost factor is this once you get your base data stored?
Yeah, so everything that we can scan in ourselves, we will. The only other additional costs will be large format scans that we don't have access to, and we'll send those off. So much, much less. Right now, the only reason why we're using a digital is because it would probably take us internally 20 years to scan in all these documents. And it's imperative that we do it now. We want to access them. So I would say very minimally, after everything's done, I would say $1,000 a year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Roloff.
I just have one comment. And the comment I said is that it's gonna save money and it's gonna save time for our actually city staff. And then it's also gonna make it easier for homeowners to come into the city hall and then it's gonna help them to be able to retrieve the data faster for them.
Yeah, and I think that if I heard you correctly, City Administrator Kugel, you also mentioned that this would be a way for our citizens to kind of go onto our website and actually bring this data to their fingertips. Is that correct?
There is that option. We haven't purchased that.
Not yet.
Yeah, and if that's something that we, as a city council, as a group, think is important, we can look into that and get some pricing for that. Right now, I just really like to focus on getting that information in there. You know, having access to it online is great. If somebody wants to, you know, get this type of information, they can come in, they can do a public data request form. But, you know, most of it is, you know, the stuff that's kind of neat to look at are council minutes, council packets from 20, 30 years ago. So, you know, that's the type of stuff most people can look at, and if somebody's interested in that, we'll have the ability to actually print this stuff off pretty quickly, as opposed to digging into a box and then trying to find it. So it'll be a lot easier. There are tools that we can add to this that will make it more accessible to the public, but they cost more.
Anything else? Well, thank you to both our city administrator and director Lawrence for the insight regarding our data and how we're going to go ahead and hang on to that and the process that you have in place. Okay, so now we're at the comments, reports, and items of appreciation portion of our council meeting. And with that said, we'll start off with Councilmember Kirby.
Oh, you caught me off guard again. Mayor Haig, I don't have anything to add or report tonight. I'm just kind of looking forward to getting through this wet season and seeing all the roads opened up. I know we don't have any control over that, but I think we've done a pretty good job so far with keeping things moving here in the community. And of course, the pothole issue. I know that's a big concern for everybody, but I know you guys are working hard on it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Roloff.
I don't have anything, but I just want to make a comment. I did have a few homeowners contact me, and they wanted me to say thank you to the actual city staff for putting up some roadblocks on the potholes, and one that is actually on Commerce Street, and that helps to not hopefully have any tire damage and that stuff. So. And so I just want to pass that along that homeowners also do appreciate it.
Very good. Councilmember Krogman.
It's been a quiet week in Lake Mayo, and I don't have anything to report.
Councilmember Fallows.
As we're talking about the season, and it's changing, and it's getting warmer, you know, I live not too far right off of Ferry Street, and which is part of the 112 turnback, and I don't know what the plan is going to be on 112 when it comes to crosswalks and stuff, but I'll tell you, it's a daily occurrence. You'll catch 10, 15 cars just completely not even looking at the crosswalks. People lined up to be able to cross from after school, families going by, going over to where the daycare is at, and cars aren't stopping. I don't know if there's going to be a plan involved for this, but that's, you know, for as much as that road is traveled, somebody's going to get hurt on that one of these days.
City Administrator Krugel.
Yeah, if I may, at our project management team meetings, we are focusing in on those, I guess, sensitive intersections. One, Elmwood and Ferry comes in to mind, but we're looking at pedestrian enhancements for those because it's close to school. Those are safe routes to school area. we're looking at lighting in those areas too. We've had a lot of calls, I would say a lot, probably 3 calls in the last year about lighting in that area, because it does get dark. We have looked into pricing some things out for lighting on our trail, so we're looking at that. We're looking at all the key intersections with this. All of those will be brought up to current state aid standards, so county state aid standards on the road. So you'll see some enhancements, definitely. If there's areas of concern that you think we should really focus on, send me a list and we'll make sure that we're really looking at it.
And then just a quick shout out and a thank you, because Streets Department was out quick this year, probably the fastest I can remember, filling in potholes. I mean, they got a lot done in a very short amount of time. That's what I got.
Thank you. Councilmember Sullivan.
I just want to touch a little bit on EDA tonight. We had a meeting. We did approve to move forward with drafting a purchase agreement to buy some land along Kingsway with a developer who's planning to build some apartments up there. Then Thursday I've got Murpuck with Councilmember Fadley's in Huntington. Looking forward to the Retail Business Expo, and then Transit meeting Tuesday at 2:30, special meeting.
That's April 1st.
2nd.
April 2nd. Okay. Director Lawrence, anything?
Yeah, I do have one item tonight. We just posted 8 seasonal jobs that are on our website. The closing date of that is Friday, April 12th, if my memory serves me correctly. And we've already had people applying for those, and they're public service laborers. Those are the jobs we're hiring for. So they will be working with our water wastewater department, electric department, and streets and parks. And then also, just heads up, we'll be posting for some lifeguard positions soon as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. City Attorney Skubitz.
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing for you tonight. Thank you.
And before I pass on to our city administrator, I've got a couple of things that I want to touch base on. We've experienced an excessive amount of damage this winter with our roads, and we have both county and state roads. I believe we have to go ahead and task staff to go ahead and see what we can do as far as grant monies or anything else we might be able to do to take care of both our county responsibilities as well as state responsibilities. Now, there is a turn-back process that's in effect, so to say, where we receive money from each of those entities. But with the amount of damage that I think we've all seen so far, especially on North Main Street, I think that we want to go ahead and see what we can do as far as tasking staff to see if there's any additional monies that might be available either from St. Paul or from the county. So, if you could please do that. The snow emergency ordinance. We had a number of people this past winter that did not take it, let me say it this way. We have to think about how we want to go ahead and deal with the snow emergency in the future. When we close off an entire street, that leaves a potential problem for all the people that live within that street. So I know it's something we're going to be talking about here further, but I just wanted to make sure that we think about that. We listen to what our constituents have to say about that. We might have to figure out a way of having a designated parking place within the Sueur where people could park these vehicles if we plan to continue with the way that we're doing it now by clearing the entire road. We have a sidewalk, snow, ice clearing, removal ordinance that's in effect. It's important that everybody understands, even now that winter's finally over, thank God, that we're responsible to make sure those sidewalks are clear. We had a number of sidewalks this past winter that did not get the care that they needed to get taken care of, and we don't want to risk having somebody getting hurt by slipping on these sidewalks. That said, the same thing applies to our garbage situation. On your day of garbage, it's imperative that that night you bring your trash cans in. If you're putting your trash cans out the day before, realize that if we have wind and you do not have your trash in bags within the can, that stuff's going to blow all over. And I think this is something that we've talked about here at City Council on multiple occasions. So just a little housekeeping for our community. Do the best thing that you can and try to be mindful of your neighbors and what the problems would be by not clearing our sidewalks and bringing in our trash cans. And let's see here. I think that should pretty much take care of it. I just also want to reiterate that we're having the Business Expo on Thursday, so I look forward to seeing everybody there. I welcome everybody in the community to make it a point of coming on down to the Valley Green Mall. There'll be a whole lot of not only city staff and council that are going to be there to answer any of your potential questions, but we're also going to have an awful lot of vendors that are going to be showing off their wares. I also hear there's going to be some food choices too, so make it a point of showing up. Okay, anything else before we go? Oh, I'm sorry, City Administrator Krugel, you got probably have a bunch for us, right?
No, I'll make it quick. Councilmember Krogman and I have an MMPA meeting tomorrow morning, so we'll be going up to Shakopee and doing that. I do have a call with the Henderson representative, their attorney, tomorrow afternoon to talk about that that agreement, the possibility of that agreement. So at the next council meeting, I'll be able to provide an update, I hope. See, we have the Business Expo on Thursday, as mentioned before. That is in conflict with our MRPUC meeting, so a few of us will be going to both, I assume. And then just a little bit about the snow removal policy review and the sidewalk and grass mowing abatement process. So these are things that I've scheduled to be on the agenda for June 24th of this year. So we'll go through the snow emergency, snow removal process or policy that we have, see if there's anything we want to change for that before the snow season starts at the end of 2019, and adopt that process and that policy. So the snow removal policy is a policy, just a reminder. Our communications director, Stacy Lawrence, is working on developing that policy book. So that's one of the policies that will be in this book, one of the many, many policies that we have in one central location. Now, the second thing that was mentioned was sidewalk snow removal. The current ordinance says you have to do that within 24 hours after the snow stops falling. Right now, what that process is if we notice it, then we send a letter. We give you 48 hours to do it. If you don't do it, then we have a contractor do it, and we charge that back. In my experience in the last couple of years here, that doesn't work very well. The main concern is that the sidewalks are cleared, they're safe, in a reasonable amount of time. We have people that are just not doing it, waiting for the city to respond, and the city clearing it through a contractor. What other surrounding cities do, St. Peter, for example, they'll send a letter out in the newsletter once a year saying this is your notice to remove this. If you don't do it within 24 hours, we will do it and charge you, in St. Peter's case, $75 minimum, and then $75 an hour after 1 hour. So from my conversations with the city administrator down in St. Peter, that works well. Basically, you notice everybody, and then the contractors go out and look for the sidewalks that aren't cleared. They clear them, and then they send us a bill. They take before and after pictures, and it's the most efficient way to do it. So we'll be talking about that. The other thing that comes up a lot in the summer is grass mowing. Having grass above that 8-inch mark that's in our International Property Maintenance Code that we've adopted. So, and we, the people out there are using their discretion. Usually it's, a foot tall. It's stuff that could be baled, is what we're really trying to get rid of. But again, we could do something very similar, because right now we give notice through the mail, and this is all driven by what's in our city code. And then we give them 7 days to mow it. If they don't, then we bring somebody in, or we have a contractor lined up to mow it, and we charge it back. So potentially somebody's lawn who's 12 inches long, it could be 18 inches long by the time it gets mowed, depending on what's going on for the weather. So we'll talk about those two things, because it's come up a lot since I've been here. And there's really, I think, more efficient ways to do it, but it will require a code amendment in order for us to approach it differently. So, come June, we'll be talking about this and, preparing for the next year.
Do we have a date on the citywide cleanup for spring?
We do. I know we've posted something to our website.
May 4th?
May 4th?
It
that
is,
Saturday?
yep, it is May
May
4th.
Okay, Councilmember Families?
Yeah, when you're talking about grass, I have a question about the drainage ditches. Who's responsible for the drainage ditch? Some of these things get really, really tall. It was like that when I moved into the new property and we wanted cutting that back, but it seems like nobody was coming in and cleaning that stuff up.
From my recollection of the code, I don't think we have anything that says you need to mow if there's a drainage ditch. The one I could think of is the one going from Elmwood that goes past the community center, along Kingsway, or under Kingsway. I don't know what other one you might be alluding to, but we could look into it, because if it's part of somebody's property, then they would have to mow it. If it's a drainage swale, they'd have to mow it, but if it's an actual ditch, then I don't think there's anything in our city code that would make somebody mow it.
Down 112.
Okay. Is it in the actual ditch?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the ditch mowing in that situation would be the county's responsibility. So we would have to work with the county. And we've partnered with them and we've cut some of their stuff with our equipment too. So, but if there's a problem area, let us know.
Okay.
So.
Anybody else? Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everybody.